Welcome to Back on the Broomstick,
a modern witch's spoken word grimoire,
where two witchy friends from way back are reconnecting to their pagan roots after a long period of mundanity.
We're rewalking the path of the wise and trying out all the latest spells, rituals, and magical theory in today's witchcraft and pagan practices.
So grab your wand and your incense,
your cauldron and your crystals,
and join us
as we get
Back on the Broomstick.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Laylla.
And I'm Chelle.
Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that we have had a lot of emails on and a lot of comments. People are always looking for community, looking for covens, looking for other pagans in real time, in real life, and the difficulties we've all kind of had finding that community.
We've even talked about how both you and I are trying to go, or actually you're more successful than I am at this point, but trying to find that community in a new location.
In our other podcast, I think I talked a little bit more about my search when I had moved here to New York looking for people and how excited I was when I saw a coffee time coming up for a coven called Circle of the Green that sounded amazing. And my absolute joy when I met them, and it worked out. It was fabulous. This is a coven that has been established in the Rochester area for over 20 years and has been very successful, has worked with other groups in the community. So today we are lucky enough to speak to my high priestesses. We have Wendy and Kelly from Circle of the Green. So ladies, if you would please introduce yourselves.
Absolutely. It's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation. My name is Kelly, and I am the high priestess and co-founder of Circle of the Green.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you again. This is very exciting to come on here. My name is Wendy. I am the co-high priestess of Circle of the Green, and I have been involved with the group for over 18 years.
Welcome to both of you. And I am so excited about this because Laylla and I have been kind of talking about this in and out in almost every episode lately. We've both had a struggle, and Layla's further along in the process than I am, but I'm excited that there are people who want to still have physical covens, do ritual and magic in person, and have that connection, because having done it both ways, years of solitary work, years of coven work, there is something to be said with making magic with a group of people.
Absolutely. And I think the last few years, with everything kind of having a trend of going online and doing things less in person, has been a good way to expand your group and to meet lots of people and learn lots of things. But we all still kind of crave that personal connection. Everyone's still craving that in-touch community. And I hear that repeated. Everyone's looking for something. But if you ladies wouldn't mind, maybe tell us a little bit about how you started or why you started Circle of the Green, and a little bit about the coven.
Sure, absolutely. So years ago, way back in the late 90s, I had discovered this path. And back then, you're old enough to remember, the internet was not what it was like it is today. So it took a lot of searching, a lot of going into metaphysical shops, asking questions, hoping for an opportunity to meet with like-minded people, take some classes at our local metaphysical shop. I met some folks who at the time would have been considered elders in the community, and they were open to allowing myself and the co-founder of the group to meet with them on a regular basis and, I don't want to say train, but learn from them and practice with them. And they were very welcoming, very welcoming. But at one point, we'd be meeting with these folks and we're like, this is wonderful. And I'm so glad I met this person. I've learned so much, but this didn't quite feel right. Mm-hmm. So after having those experiences and starting to really see what a group could be like, we were all talking and we said, why are we searching for a group? We haven't quite found the right fit. Why don't we just make our own group? And we sat down and we wrote the bylaws, and we had really put the format of what we wanted to see. We came up with the name Green because it meant so much to us, the heart, Anahata. It meant, the green of the forest, things like that. It had so much meaning. So that's really where Circle of the Green came about. So we had some amazing people who really helped us on the journey, helped us learn like what a coven could be, helped us learn just about, the craft and our where we wanted to go. But at one point we decided, what, the only way we're truly going to find what we're looking for is to create it. And we did 20 years ago.
That is so much a mirror image of mine and Layla's story. It truly is. The whole, hey, all of our friends were doing moon rituals. And one day Layla and I were like, hey, why don't we just take all of our friends, create a coven? And off we went.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Took a bunch of
absolutely.
solitaires and decided we wanted things to be slightly
Structured.
different. Like you said, we found wonderful people to work with, to learn from, to worship with, but it wasn't exactly what we were looking for. And so that was the nice thing about being able to start our own coven. And I think that for us, we had several years of really high highs and some low lows, but teaching and going to festivals and doing workshops and
Yep.
it was a lot of work. There was a lot of work there, and I don't know about your guys' experience, but for us, we would have coven meetings and they would be hours of work going over bylaws, going over lesson plans, going over every little detail. And to be honest, I get giddy every time I say my high priestesses because I adore you guys, but also because it's not me. Because it's a lot of work to run a coven, There's a lot that goes into it. It's definitely a labor of love. It has to be to have done it for this long.
I am equally excited to kind of take that step back and go from high priestess back to initiate.
Mm-hmm.
There's no pressure.
Right.
Well, it's funny. I agree with you. And when we first started, it was tough, right? We did every festival. We closed every pagan pride day around. We did classes. There was NEC of Wicca at the time, which is Northeast Council of Witches. We would go to those meetings. And it's like another job, right? But
Yeah.
there was also magic in the moments because the first time you start practicing as a coven, you're like, oh my God, the energy, it's so different, right? And it was so strong and the consistency of it. So yeah, definitely difficult, more difficult than we anticipated, but then also definitely the magic was there, which was incredible. But I will say, as we've gone over the years, I think the reason we've made it 20 years, and Wendy can certainly give her input as well, is we learn to relax and not be so have to have this and be this way, because quite frankly that didn't work for people in our group. Like, we are a bit more relaxed. It's a more of this is our lives. It's not just putting together a group. It's living it every day and really becoming a family. So we used to do our meetings where everyone must be here. We'd get together on a Sunday morning and we're going to go through this list of things that we need to accomplish. We still accomplish things, and sometimes we'll do it through Zoom call, but we've relaxed a lot. And the other component to that too is our circle is a bit different. We don't view hierarchy as a lot of other covens would. So yes, Wendy and I are the co-high priestesses, but that's because there does have to be a leader. If there's no
Yes.
leadership at all, nothing will ever get done.
Oh, especially not in a pagan group because we'll all
No,
go off on our own directions.
That's
Like herding
absolutely.
cats.
yeah, there has to be a leader, but truly the way we work, we view everyone as a priestess, and everyone has that power and that magic within them. And when there are important decisions to be made, like when Layla, we wanted to talk about having you join our coven, it wasn't just Wendy and I having that conversation. When you met with us that first day, you noticed the whole stone circle, our inner
Yes.
circle, came to meet you. They all were invested. They all wanted to see who are these people who are interested, and they
Yes.
all have an opinion, and that opinion we value, and we listen, we value, and we take it into consideration as a group. So it is a little different, I think, than some other groups.
Yes.
And I'd like to say too that yes, we have relaxed, but part of that is that that in many ways I think we've evolved, right? So we
Mhm.
consider ourselves a learning circle. And when we were first doing that learning, it was a very traditional curriculum. Like you might go to class, and then the more that we grew in our craft, the more that we grew as teachers, and the more, we had families, we realized that teaching can take a lot of different forms, and it's a lot more organic on how it's done now. The way that we teach in the group is similar to how I raised my children in this faith. You learn by doing, you learn by going, you learn by explaining in those meaningful moments. So, we've relaxed because that's how you have to manage life, is to just kind of, ride with the waves. But we haven't lost anything because of that transition.
Absolutely. It's a great
Yep.
point.
And I love that, again, it sounds so much like what we had, Layla, with Circulamara. I mean,
Right down to being a teaching coven.
we had this idea of, okay, very much structure, but my house at the time was Coven Central. I had two very, very small children, so everybody met at my house so I could put my kids to bed, and then Coven time. And we had to be relaxed because I might have a 2-year-old run out in the middle of a heated Coven discussion. And rigidness hurts that family environment, I think. And that is why, I understand, like, especially traditional covens, that traditionalism does work for people. But someone like me, I kind of need that relaxed because of the rest of my life.
And Chelle, that's exactly where we were at. We had young families. We started, we didn't have children. Wendy did have her child, but the rest of our group, we were just getting married. We were still, some of us were single. There's still single folks too, but we were just, our lives were evolving. So our coven needed to evolve to stay up with that. And everyone became family. Just because you have a new baby and you can't come out for a while, we weren't going to be like, no, you're out, you can't come back. No, we relaxed. Come when you can. You're always welcome, and if you can't make it, we understand. And I think that's really grew trust, and that grew the relationships, and ultimately I think that's what helps to sustain us over 20 years.
I think that's a huge part of why, because I know a big part of why Amarat broke up was, I mean, more people had families. Some of the people that were with us that had been college students moved away, joined other covens. Chelle, you went through a divorce. And so Coven Central became a difficult place. And, a lot of things happened and life got in the way. But the way you guys did it, you incorporated that right into your circle and allowed your whole lives to stay in that space, in that magical
Mhm.
space, and just kind of incorporate it all in. Whereas I think for Chelle and I, after Amarat broke up and we all kind of went our separate ways and got a little less magical, which is why now we're kind of coming back into it after a few years away. For whatever reason, it's been very, very hard to find people in real life to connect with.
It almost feels harder than the late 90s, honestly. Harder to find a group than how hard it was in the 90s,
I can
truly.
understand that. I think there were a few. We would do open portals every year, maybe a couple times a year, to allow for new members if folks were interested. Because we did recognize that. I mean, just why we started Circle of the Green, people are searching. People need a safe place. But I will say, during the COVID, the couple of years there where COVID was scary, even we weren't doing open portals anymore,
Right.
and we had to bring our circle virtual. For us, that was difficult. We were not virtual people. So we had to become virtual people and figure it out, which I think we did a really good job at. But then, after a couple of years, we had to get back together and say, you know what, there are people searching. And, we're at a place where we feel comfortable again, opening the doors. And that's when we put out our first portal since before COVID.
I have to say that I think it would be a lot harder now, and I give you two a lot of credit, because I would hate to try to find a new community at this stage, and it's not at the stage in my life. For me, it's more about the stage of the internet. So I remember, again, back in the late 90s or whatever it was, you had one website you could go to, Witchfox. That's where you went for everything, right?
God bless
You need to read
Witchfox.
Yep.
Right. You needed to read. You could see everything listed there. Not everything had all of the, you do a search for it now and you're going to get thousands of results, which makes it very challenging to know if you're talking with people that are real or people who are not. And you had some of those concerns back then too, right? I mean, I went to a few that were a little bit dicey and you had to be concerned about some safety, but for the most part, it wasn't so inundated. You are more likely to make those connections. It would be very overwhelming right now with just as much that's out there.
And I don't know if Layla had told you this prior, but 3 years ago, I moved to Witch City, USA. Not because of that, but here I am. And I am having a harder time here than I did in rural upstate New York. And it's shocking. But part of it for me, being new to this town, new to the state, I need to make friends and to find a coven. I went to a local store and I inquired, and I was told, if you're not from here, you're not going to be welcomed anywhere. And like, I was hurt. I feel like I would be an asset to a coven. Finally, believe it or not, Layla found a group for me to inquire with, and I am actually in process of scheduling a meeting, kind of a meeting, a coffee date type thing, to see if I can get into a Celtic Welsh tradition coven. But I've been here 3 years and it took Layla to find my first lead. How ridiculous in Witch City, USA. I can't, if you would have told me in 1998 that in 2023, I would be in Salem struggling to find people to do magic with, I would have laughed at you.
Yeah.
But here I am.
And it's interesting because, yes, there's a level of secrecy for this, and not everybody is going to be open to others. And I completely embrace and acknowledge and understand that. But there is a different level of gatekeeping now that necessarily didn't exist, 20 years ago, that we shouldn't be elitist about what it is we're doing. We should be cautious, but there is a difference.
Yeah. And I think that in the last 10 years, everything has been turned into a scam. You don't know now if the person on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, you don't know if they're scamming you or if they're a well-intended real person.
Wendy, that's something that I have heard quite a bit is people are finding covens, online covens that very rapidly become just cesspools of
Cultish.
yeah, for all sorts of different reasons. But people are finding these online covens very easily, but it's not really what they're looking for. Or it's just a group of people who are also searching, who are trying to do something together, which is fine. There's something to be said for people learning and seeking together.
That is one of the reasons too why you saw our coffee invite that we put out, is that we would see that brought us back to reality going, okay, COVID's over. We would see in those groups, because we're in them too, right? Watching, and we would see people asking about groups. And a lot of times they're upstate New York, not necessarily Rochester, but we would put it out. If you're interested, reach out to me. Some people do, some people don't. But that's why we put that open portal out on the internet to see if there was interest in the Rochester area.
Mm-hmm.
And we did get some folks, and we had really great folks, and we had really great conversation, and Circle of the Green's grown a bit. One of the things too, I know we talked about previously, before the internet, before the well, not really before the internet, but before COVID days, where everything became online, there was always that kind of fear of, is this group good? Is this group okay? And we had talked a bit where some of us in the local community, some of the bigger covens that we knew and we trusted, put together a group, Circle of the Tribes, to be that place, that source where people could come to and say, hey, I'm interested in a group. And maybe Circle the Green wasn't the right fit, but maybe, one of the other covens were. So that's been going on a long time, even before the internet, making sure you can find a safe place and somewhere to go. So that was something we did to try to build community. Unfortunately, with COVID and everyone pulling back, that has definitely impacted that. We used to get together every 3 years, do one giant community ritual, and bring all the folks together. But unfortunately, COVID definitely impacted that.
See, one thing I've dealt with here is there are a couple groups that do advertise, but one of them, for example, They are kind of vampire based,
Mm,
very open and very willing to meet new people. But for me, vampire magic is not my thing. I applaud them for giving out the open invitation to the public and trying to build their group, but it's not for me. I needed to find something more along my lines. And then don't get me started on the pay to participate.
Mm.
I understand chipping in for supplies and things of that nature, but I have a big problem with you only open up to the public for profit. So it really is part of who's out there and willing versus what's a good fit. And goddess bless Layla, she found the perfect fit for me.
I hope so.
I
I'm
hope
really
so.
looking forward to your tea here because I'm very excited. The Coven sounds great. The High Priestess sounds wonderful. And I'm very excited for you because I know
And I
it's
am very
been a
excited.
couple years of looking.
I've done a couple tarot reads on the subject, and I think I'm going in a good direction.
Nice. Now, this whole topic of community was a topic that we talked about quite a bit at the festivals that I was at recently. And interestingly enough, it seemed like every third person that I met was from Rochester. And they're all here getting their pagan witchy freak on. And where are they here at home? It
Why aren't you
just
all getting together there?
right, right. I think there is a distinct lack of not just covens, and I mean, God's bless you guys because I love that you're here and have been here, but there is a lack of covens, and there's also a lack of pagan communities, like the Circle of the Tribes that you mentioned, and the pagan community that we had in the southern tier of New York, Shell, which was that was every high holiday, as you know, that was the whole wheel of the year as opposed to once every 3 years. And that was a fabulous way for solitaires to find a group and to work with different people.
And network to maybe try to get into a group.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And it gave you a chance to see the type of ritual that they would put on because different groups or individuals would pick the holiday and be in charge of it for that festival. And so you could see what they were like and be like, oh, well, this Norse group really sounds like my bag. And so you would talk to them or, this very eclectic group is more what I vibe with. And so that was a fabulous way for people to really intermingle and become, traditions and groups and circles. And that group has even gone. They did get together for Beltane recently, but that was the first time in 5-ish years that they'd gotten together.
That's a point I want to make. All of this wasn't because of the pandemic.
No.
This started before the pandemic. So it's not that the pandemic made people afraid to be around others. This was starting long before that.
yeah, I do agree with you.
Pandemic, I think, exacerbated it, but
Yeah, I do agree with you. Locally in Rochester, we started to see a lot of the local shops. The shops were a community too, right?
Mm-hmm.
These metaphysical shops that open the doors, we used to be there volunteering. We would do a couple rituals a year. Other covens would come in and they would all, it was funny. We'd meet at Psychic's Time and the owner of Psychic's Time would be like, all right, who's going to do this one? Circle of Rain's got that. Who's going to do this one? Coven of Sago Show's got that. We used to split out the year and all the different groups would contribute. We would do this on our own. We'd have workings, bring cakes and ale, all of that great stuff, and invite the community so that people did get a taste to see if maybe one of the groups was a good fit. But also for those solitary folks who maybe don't want a group, but they just want to get together once in a while.
Yeah.
let me ask you this. Why did that group stop doing that?
It was actually the shops, and they just could not afford to stay open any longer. They went under. They had to shut their doors. And that's another thing. So it's really scary. And I can't speak to every local Rochester shop, but a lot of those shops that used to be these places where we would meet, where we'd have community, where people would go and ask those questions over the years, even before COVID, slowly one by one, we started to see them shut their doors. And there really isn't, we don't have these places anymore that we used to have where we'd have these meetings, these community and these gatherings. There are a few metaphysical shops, but it's not the same as it used to be. It's very different. So one thing we did talk about, and I know Layla was part of that conversation, we had an idea where Circle of the Green, we are celebrating 20 years it was last Ostara, but we're looking to have a gathering where we invite folks from other covens in which we've been with through the years, to celebrate our 20-year anniversary. But we also wanted to utilize that as a kickoff of starting to bring people back together and see if other people might want to take the next event,
if you can get that spark going.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it.
Me
exactly.
too.
Well, and part of it is, where we're known as the city of festivals. I mean, you can't go really a day or two in the summertime and not have a festival going on. So it's
Jazz festival right now, and then Fringe festival, and we have you're not joking.
And I have friends participating in Fringe festival, right? It's exciting, and we've got there's just so many, and there used to be more, right? Again, prior to COVID, right? We've got the before years. We would have East Ave Festival. We would have all of these different things. And it's, of all the places, we could support something like that here, but it's a lot of work, right? So, we do talk about how it's nice to get together and it's nice to do these things, but there's a lot of logistical aspects of that. A lot of people who are active in the community also have families and full-time jobs. And it can be a challenge, right? If not everybody kind of steps up to help make it happen, it's one of the things that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, we totally relate to that. There's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah, that's why we were thinking of that is 100% valid. We're in the same boat. Everyone's like, what happened to Rochester Pagan Pride? Why don't you guys take it? Why doesn't somebody take it? Because it's a lot of work, and there's fundraising. It's a not-for-profit. But that's why we're hoping with the idea of, all right, let's kick it off with a ritual. A ritual is just a ritual. It's not as difficult. It's just get together and do one ritual. We can do it in a local park, or if someone wants to do it at their house, it's certainly okay. But that's why we're hoping we can start that spark again just by a ritual. It's not a huge commitment. Random
question. How welcoming is Rochester as a whole to pagans, witches? Like, if you were to go and do, say, a 50-person ritual in a park, are you getting ridiculed? Are you having protesters? How accepted are the pagans and witches in Rochester?
Go ahead, Kelly.
Oh, I was just going to say, with Pagan Pride and the all of the marketing, the promotion of it, there's a lot of awareness. So we would get protesters. They were not very nice, but they never really got physical. From my understanding, I've never seen that, but they'd have their signs and everything else, up there. But there was also a lot of promotion. Doing rituals, we're not promoting it in that same capacity. Right. It's more of almost old school. We're doing this ritual, maybe post it within the pagan groups, but it's not going to be so public. So I don't think we'd get protesters from there.
Not for that. No, that sounds very much like the pagan community in the Southern Tier that we were part of. It was invite only.
I wanted to just quick ask, do you guys feel that your coven is something that you can continue to sustain in the environment that we are currently in?
I do. The reason why is our coven is, like I said, it's become family. It is more than just a group. We are our own community within it, right? And it's our lifestyle. I don't see it going anywhere. The people, and we have layers of commitment. We have our outer circle folks who, can come and go as they please. You're welcome. And, they're welcome to join, celebrate with us. And then we have our inner circle, or we call the stone circle. And those folks are the folks that basically said, this is it. We're lifers. We're together. We're family.
Your core, inner, rock solid group.
We're not going anywhere. So we love each other. We care about each other. We care about each other's families. We're not going anywhere.
Is there competition with covens there?
I think there's one of our great friends as a coven that started 1 year after us. So that's always kind of like, well, we got you beat by a year. But, we don't really engage in that kind of talk. I think what we've done and what we look for is, and with Ronci, you had mentioned another high priestess of another organization, and other folks too throughout the pagan community. What we've tried to do is really just come together, right? Like if I find someone comes to me, honestly, we had someone did come to us. We are a group that's very family focused. We have children. Sometimes those kids are going to run around and they're going to be in and out, and we're very open to that and open to their energy. But there are some folks that just want to practice in an adult coven. Someone
Right.
had come to me recently and they were looking for an adult coven. So I geared them in the right direction of where they might want to go. Obviously, we're not a great fit. And they do the same. Other folks will do the same. I just met with a woman who is, and Wendy too. We met with her a couple weeks ago, who she was directed to us from another local coven. They had listened to her, what she was looking for. They said, you know what? We think Circle of the Green would be a great fit for you. So they directed her in our direction. So we try to work together with the folks that we know to help find the right fit, the right people for the right groups, and hopefully provide a safe place. So I actually don't feel that competitive. I don't personally feel that competitive, feeling amongst the groups.
I totally agree. And I think one of the reasons for that is we're not trying to become a mega church, right? We would rather have 2 or 3 or 4 really good fits than the vast number of people. And a lot of the other leaders in the community feel the same way. So it helps us grow the way that we need to.
Quality, not quantity.
Exactly.
But Wendy, I wanted to ask you something. So here I am. I'm getting ready to have a coffee meet here in the next week or so. I am going in, much like Laylla did, kind of the quote unquote 30-year veteran. What should someone like me, and I know I'm not meeting and greeting with your group particularly, but in general, what should someone like me expect out of this? Because I have a little anxiety, because I feel like I was 19 when I was on the side of the coin.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I'm scared. I mean, I'm not scared, but I'm a little apprehensive. Like, what should I expect from a coven like yours? And I'm sure our listeners would like to know too. When you say, let's set up a coffee meet and see, like, what should I expect? What are we talking about? What are we doing? Like, give me a little info about that, Wendy.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you were meeting with us, right, it would literally be first, let's pick out our coffee and our snacks, because we're not going to do any of this without our solid foundation of caffeine and sugar. Okay. Because we are real and we are humans and this is our life. And Kelly and I and everybody else in the group, we don't have anything to prove to anybody else. So you're not going to get a lot of that hierarchical type of thing that you're going to normally
I don't
see.
want it to feel like a job interview. Is that what meeting covens is nowadays? That's what I'm looking to find out.
Wasn't
Yeah,
with
I
them.
mean-
It was not.
Yeah, it's not with us, because what we look for, and I can't say obviously what everybody is going to look for, but I
Right.
will say if it's somebody who's worth giving your energy to, they better be somebody who's willing to share their energy with you first to see if it's going to be a fit. And you will know almost right away if that's true. Like you'll find out relatively quickly if you're going to jive. So, for us, it's having the conversations about, here's a little of our history, here's a little bit about us. It's a very organic conversation, similar to what we're having here.
So you don't really have like a list of questions that you show up with and like you're checking them off as you go.
Now, for us, it's like the generic, what made you interested to come here, right? Just that's probably the closest to the job interview that I care about is I want to know your interests. I want to know what you want to get out of a group. And that'll help us decide if this is going to be a good fit, right? Because if they want somebody who wants to come over every Sunday and study for 6 hours, love that energy, that's not us. But if you want to have real conversations where you can learn in an organic nature and
while making homemade Play-Doh.
While making homemade Play-Doh and slime before it was cool, we're probably the people for you. So my suggestion to you is, and I'm sure you already know this, but go in being your authentic self, because if you're not, you can't do this work with others if you can't be.
Right.
It's not just about them interviewing you. This is your opportunity to ask your questions to make sure they're the right fit for you too. That's how when we want to hear from them as much as, We want to learn about them. We want to tell them about us, and we want to make sure like they would feel comfortable. Like this is who we are.
I feel like
And
I'm going on a date.
And I love that you said that it's an interview on both sides because it really, really is.
I think one thing for our listeners, we do have a lot of baby witches out there, a lot of new folks to witchcraft and paganism. And you want to make sure that when you are going and chatting with new people and trying to find your fit, remember it's not just the energy and it's not just the personality. You really are, I don't want to say looking for new best friends, but these types of groups, they are families. They become families. They become best friends. I mean, all of Circle Alma, all this started because Laylla and I met playing spades in the college cafeteria. And I was like, hey, you're into witchcraft, you're into witchcraft. And the next thing you know, let's do a moon ritual, let's do spells, and it really is almost like finding a new group of friends, not just a magical group, but a new group of friends. And if you're not looking at it that way, maybe you're not a good fit because these environments, they become your family, they become your best friends. And the most important thing is that you are getting that kind of best friend connection, not just, I can hang out with these people and do a moon ritual once a month. You have to be invested in the relationship with these people, not just the magic.
agreed.
I wanted to ask if either of you, Wendy or Kelly, or even Chelle, if you've heard of something called the Seeker's Bill of Rights.
No.
This is something that I've only recently found, and I kind of love it. I do recommend anyone that's looking for a coven kind of look into it. This was written by Charles Mars to protect and educate those seeking a pagan path. And it's basically things like you have the right when you're looking for a coven or a group to work with to verify their credentials. You have the right to anonymity, financial stability, the right to sexual freedom, the right to physical well-being, different things like that, because you should consider these things when you ask to join a coven, whether it's virtual or in real life. You should be paying attention to what do they stand for and who are they.
What kind of magic do they practice? If you're not
Right.
into sex magic, don't get in a sex magic coven.
That's a very good point. But so I guess with the Seeker's Bill of Rights, you guys were very good about having the in-person meetup and having the questionnaire. But is there anything else that you would recommend to people seeking a group?
What I have done before I have my tea meet, because, oh my God, she wanted to have a tea meet. And I was like, this is perfect. I hate coffee. I love tea, meant to be. I looked up their group. I looked up their tradition. As much as I'm into the whole Celtic, Gaelic, Welsh thing, I had never actually heard of their specific tradition. I looked them up. I researched them. Do your research, people. We all got phones. We all got computers. We all got Google. I feel like I did my due diligence by looking into them just as much as they're going to look into me. So I'm not going to my meet and greet kind of blind. I know a good amount of information about them going into it. So do your research.
Yeah, so I would say, if you're somebody who is comfortable in the path and have been doing it for a while, make sure that you have those questions about what resonates with you to see if that resonates with others. But if you're new to the path and you don't know what those questions even are, because we've worked with people who are brand new and they just know that they've got a poll and a drawing and they don't know that, be honest about that too, because you're not necessarily going to be able to learn otherwise. But if you're honest about it, you can kind of vet out if this is a group that's going to be willing to teach you, to embrace you, and to mentor you, or if it's got a little bit more of a standoffish feel. So kind of know what you're looking for, even if you're new, on what it is that you would like your community to look like, and then ask those questions when you're meeting.
As well as what you're drawn to. Like I said, there's an open group here in Salem that practice vampire magic. I didn't reach out because that ain't my thing. Kind of also keep in mind what you're drawn to.
See, I agree with that too, Chelle. We do have a website so people can learn about our group. Other important thing I believe something that's helpful is understanding what that tradition is and seeing how those people practice. So Layla, you may remember when we met with you, that was great. We connected. We're like, yes, we definitely feel a connection here. We loved your story. It was very similar to our story. But the next thing we did is invited you to a ritual. We
Yes.
wanted you to come, spend some time with us, be in circle with us, make sure it
Feel
still
that
feels
magic.
good.
See if that feel melds
Exactly.
with, yep.
I didn't immediately add her to our Facebook group or anything like that because I didn't want her to be uncomfortable if she joined us and came and then said, wait a minute, this is not for me. But if the group is willing to let you come to an open, I would definitely recommend that so you can spend some time with them, feel their energy, see if it's a good fit for you before you make that commitment that you want a circle.
Yes. And conversely, if anyone asks you to sign something to lock you down right away before you get a chance to do that, that's a red flag. Yeah.
Run.
I see lots of, we're all saying run. That's a big red flag. Nobody should ask you to do something that's uncomfortable or should ask you to sign your life away right away.
No signing your life away, giving blood or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. They shouldn't ask you to break the law. You shouldn't have to have sex with anyone. You shouldn't have to do anything like that. You should just be able to get to know them and go at your own pace.
And my biggest pet peeve, you shouldn't have to pay a big fee.
Thank you. Yes. Like you said earlier, Chelle, putting in a little money towards administrative costs. There's always porta potties, there's food, there's candles you have to buy. Of course, having a little donation is one thing. Yeah. But financially supporting someone or big donations, another red flag.
Yeah, I will say what we've always done is, when everyone's here in circle, Wendy noticed, we're low on candles because I have the Coven study here at my house. So she'll grab candles. Or I might know we're going to need something for ritual. So we've always made it into a group effort.
And I think I saw on something about a small donation and I brought money that first time and you told me no. I gave you money and you're like, no, just hold on to that. It's no problem. So that was really nice. I thought that was pretty cool and definitely a green flag. I thought
we will never say no to snacks though. So you're always welcome to bring the cookies or the cupcakes or, the drink. That we will never turn away when you come over.
I do have to say, you guys have always liked my snacks. I pride myself on bringing good treats. So
now for folks that are in mid to northern New York in the Rochester, Buffalo area, when is the next time they could have an opportunity to come to an open ritual with you folks?
With Circle of the Green, we are going to have our 20-year anniversary. That's probably going to be folks in the community invite only. But I would say if there's interest, certainly reach out to us. We're happy to, we're very welcoming. We're happy to people to join us if they want to, join us for one of the many holidays. If they want to just celebrate with a group, we're very welcoming. So I would say definitely reach out to us.
And I'll give everybody an update because when I come to Rochester, I'm going to weasel my way into one of these folks' rituals.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I was going to invite you virtually. You're telling me about the situation in Salem. I was going to say, we do have some members that have left the state of New York that still join us once in a while virtually.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, your experience will be a little bit different, obviously.
Right.
But you'll still at least have that opportunity. We send the ritual in advance so you can prepare. So yeah, anytime.
Sign me up.
Let us know.
And one place that people can usually go, Kelly and Wendy, I think you had mentioned this earlier, was I used to do rituals with local metaphysical and pagan shops in the area. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of those now, but that is a good place to go typically. Covens and magical groups, please advertise at your local pagan shops. And if you're seeking a pagan shop or a local UU church is a great place to stop into and see if they have information on local groups that are practicing.
Can I toss out my little plug about, in a world where you can buy anything you want on Amazon and online, supporting those local stores is critically important to being able to keep the community going.
Yes.
I'm always willing to spend a little bit more for the 7-day candles at my local botanical than I would be ordering online.
Big plug for that. Absolutely. And Shell, like you said, we don't all have the luxury of being able to step outside of our workplace and go to 50 million different pagan shops. But, we do appreciate the ones that we have for sure.
You know darn well that payday on my lunch break is dangerous because I go walking.
Yeah.
We want to thank Wendy and Kelly. Again, Circle of the Green, Rochester, New York. If you're interested and want to connect with them, Laylla will post contact info. We're also going to post info for the website Mandragore Magic. Oh God, Laylla, I can't say this.
Mandragorica?
Yeah, because that was integral in me connecting with folks. So Laylla will post links. And again, we want to thank Wendy and Kelly, wonderful ladies. And wow, keep it witchy, folks.